I was married at 21 to a woman. That lasted 8 years. It shouldn't have lasted that long. I cried on my wedding night. I mean, something was off. If I had been honest, I would have probably ended it at the start. People who don't know themselves, all they know is self-image. They end up making the right decision for the wrong person, the one they thought they were.
What have you done in your life to get to this point and feel as good as you do?
I went through a process of disillusion. A lot of things made me happy for a little while, but nothing seemed to last. And so I started asking, well, what is this thing called happiness? The search only reinforces the sense of dilemma. The happiest people I know are focused on.
In this video, I'll be interviewing Dan Millman, a 79-year-old best-selling author of 18 books, most notably known for writing The Peaceful Warrior, which has sold over 1 million copies worldwide. Dan's story is the perfect example for those of you who wonder what it takes to be successful. Today, he shares life lessons from all of its ups and downs. These are some of the most powerful lessons you'll ever learn in life. So I really think without further ado, you're going to learn a lot from this one. How old are you?
79 years old.
What does it feel like to be 79?
Hard to describe because I may not be typical 79-year-old. I do notice things that I didn't when I was 40 or 50 or 60. I didn't feel like I was aging at all until I was about 55.
How old would you say you feel mentally?
Mentally, probably 50 or 60, 70 maybe. Yeah.
It's interesting because the more I ask this question, the more people who are around your age or older feel a lot younger mentally than they do physically, which is like a little scary to think about.
Well, it's true. We're all young inside, looking out at the world like wondering what happened.
But what have you done in your life to get to this point and feel as good as you do?
I've practiced numerous martial arts during my life, and that gave me certain disciplines of breathing and relaxation. I believe that older folks need more exercise than younger people, but they need a different kind of exercise. So my wife and I both stay. She's only a young thing at 73. But we both stay very active. So I'm a vegetarian, but do I preach that? No, it's not a religion. One of the things that I core to the way I live and what I teach is that there's no best exercise system, there's no best diet, there's no best teacher or philosophy or book or religion or path. There's only the best for each of us at a given time in our life. So life's an experiment. We have to find out what works for us.
How do I do that? I would say that there's so much noise in the world right now.
It's true.
And trends, and people latch on to what they see they think works, but what might not actually be good for them. How did you figure out what is good for you at a certain point?
Self-trust and self-knowledge evolves over time. People just can't graduate from college and say, I know myself, because it takes testing in the face of the world. I view daily life as a form of spiritual weight training. You don't lift any weights, you don't get any stronger. So adversity has its benefits. Sometimes climbing out of a dark hole can give us the strength to climb the mountain. And many people need reminders of that at difficult times in their lives. So how do you do that? How do you come to find your own way? You know, people who don't know themselves, all they know is self-image. And if they don't know themselves, they end up making the right decision for the wrong person, the one they thought they were.
Yeah. What do we need to know about how you grew up and your childhood to understand the version of you that we are with today?
Well, some people view me as a quote-unquote spiritual teacher or a teacher about the bigger picture, and they think my athletic career as a gymnast and all-around gymnastics was a preparation for the work I do, but actually it was the start of the work I do, because athletics taught me universal laws about process, doing things step by step, about choices, responsibility. That's why I tell people today, don't go for success, go for excellence, because you can control excellence. You can't control success. You know, we can't control outcomes in our life, whether we sink a putt, make a basket, find love, or succeed in business. That's not in our direct control, but by making a good effort over time, we're more likely to increase the odds of getting what we'd like. That's what I've learned, and that's how I live. I had an interest in the big picture because I went through a process of disillusion. The Hindus call it neti, 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 not this, not this, not this. A lot of things made me happy for a little while, but nothing seemed to last. And so I started asking, well, what is this thing called happiness? What are the rules of life? Things like Mark Twain's quip about, I've had many troubles in my life, most of which never happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we laugh at that because that's true for most of us. Most of our troubles are past or future. Regrets, anxieties. In the present moment, we just have this to handle. Most of us can handle the present moment.
Were you close with your parents growing up?
Yeah. Actually, I was. I look back on them with a lot of love.
What's a piece of advice that they were giving you constantly when you were younger? Or maybe a life lesson that you still think about to this day?
Well, my dad valued health a lot, and he loved to play tennis. He said, you know what I love about the game of tennis, Dan? I said, what, Dad? He said, every shot makes somebody happy. And that was like a light bulb moment, you know? In fact, I think a fundamental shift that we need to make in order to survive and thrive as a human species is we have to shift from a competitive mindset to a collaborative mindset. Rather than what's in it for me, shifting to what's for the highest good of all concerned. That's a big leap. That's a big ask. Well, for example, in the game of tennis, it's like a non-competitive martial art.
Yeah.
A very aggressive, assertive sport. And the idea is to make the person on the other side of the net, your opponent, fail. If they fail to return the ball, you win the point.
Mm-hmm.
But when I play, I view that person as my student and my teacher. I can't improve without them. I might as well use a wall to hit the ball against.
Right.
But they'll show me my weak spots. So I'm actually grateful to them. I'm still going to play my best. In fact, there's less tension,
Right.
or less upset about a bad line call, for example.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Right. So you don't care if you lose?
No. You learn a lot, you know. Failure is just, I failed 50 times a day in the gym. Crash. And then until I could succeed. And so that was just a stepping stone for me.
Yeah, most people are deathly afraid of failing.
Yeah, what does it mean? Their worth is based on how well they do. Maybe they project it in the eyes of their parents or friends or the world. But really, I recommend people don't say, I'm a gymnast, I'm a doctor, I'm an attorney. Say, I practice law, I practice medicine, I practice gymnastics. Because then when you retire or you can't do it anymore for whatever reason, you practice something else. You don't have a sense of loss.
It's a good way of reframing it.
Yeah, exactly.
You remove your worth. I think ego gets in the way of just about everything. So you remove your ego from the situation. It allows you to get out of your own way.
The ego, I use my ego. I'm not trying to get rid of it. I'm trying to transcend it. There's a big difference. Getting rid of it, you might as well just have sit around drooling because there's no personality there. There's no you. But transcending it through insight and through humor, not taking yourself so seriously, that has benefits. So I use my ego, my personality level, to teach, to learn, and to serve.
Do you think most people take themselves and life too seriously?
Yes. People say, I'm so stressed out. That's not good for me. And I go, no, it's stress. It's part of life. I can tell people how to not be stressed.
Yeah.
Don't care about anything.
Right.
But that's not necessarily realistic advice,
Yeah, you might get stressed about that too.
Exactly. I don't care about anything. Oh my God. But really, we do care. We're attached to people, things, ideas. Stress is just a part of our life. But really what's harmful is the tension that goes along with the stress. And the antidote I know of for stress, the best antidote, is to take a deep breath and relax the body. Can you imagine sitting around going, whoa, I'm so stressed today?
What is it about the stories that we tell ourselves that you think impacts the person we become or the person we don't become?
Yeah. Look, there's that famous story about this kid who was not very smart. He wasn't very good academically. He usually gets C's. And he wasn't good in sports. He was chosen last for most of the teams. And he wasn't actively disliked, but he just wasn't one of the popular kids either. But one thing he loved to do was to draw, this doodle. And when he was in high school, he submitted to the school paper one of his cartoons, and it was rejected. But he just kept doing it because he liked doing it. And he grew up pretty successful. He ended up coming up with this idea of called Peanuts. Charlie Brown, Lucy, and the $40 million a year, he was making. Charles Schulz, whom I met. And many people, of course, they're going to go on the search. Now, what is perfect for me? And I don't know if there's any perfect soulmate or perfect career. We can build a life with another person, even if they're not perfect. And maybe it is luck to some degree. I've been very lucky. And that's not modesty.
Yeah.
There are people who set out and work really hard to write a good book. It just doesn't click. And I happened to write my first book, and it failed actually out of the gate. And it wasn't until 3 years later that this old fellow who was a retired publisher read a copy, out of print copy, and went, I'm going back into publisher. I'm starting with this book. It took him 2 years to get the book chains to take one copy in each store. So the point is, the road isn't that smooth all the time. There are bumps in the road. Once we overcome the inner battles with self-doubt, insecurity, and all those things, then the rest externally becomes easier.
Tell me about how you were feeling in that moment. So you put out your first book, you said it failed, and then someone comes out of nowhere. But what are you doing in the time frame from
Whenever
how it failed to
painting houses? I was working on...
You had given up on the book, though, at that point? Or
Well, there was nothing to do with it. It was a failed hardback. And my agent said, just write another book.
Right.
But I didn't write another book for 10 years after Way of the Peaceful Warrior, because I really felt I'd said what I had to say.
Yeah.
But then I met new influences in my life. I was so excited about new information, a flood of it, that I started writing, starting 1990, started writing a book every year or two. 18 books now, counting, Yeah, over 40 years. Nothing lasts. Change comes at us in waves that we can't predict or control.
Yeah.
But we can learn to surf. And that's one of those life skills, learning to surf, kind of go with the flow. The martial art of Aikido teaches that. Go with the flow. Don't resist force with force. A larger life skill. And that's what I've tried to teach all these years. Practical life skills, not abstract philosophy, because we have enough to think about already.
That is interesting. How do you interpret that, I guess, for the person listening? Like, how do I go about my life, I guess, and I see bad things happening to me, good things have happened to me. What do I tell myself in those situations? Just keep going, keep serving, keep making life about more than just you? Is that sort of the understanding?
Well, you just said it. The happiest people I know are focused on other people, on a service, on good work, on whatever their career is, rather than on themselves, because the search only reinforces the sense of dilemma that sends us seeking in the first place. Like, what is this about not enoughness? I think we need to be satisfied with this present moment, and yet we can still strive to improve, and that's part of human nature, but not from a place of want or lack or deficit.
Talked earlier about the younger person not coming out of college or university knowing exactly who they are, figuring their life out. They got to go through it. How do you recommend, you're 79, if you're looking back, how would you recommend someone at that stage in their life finds what they want to do and finds who they want to be?
People have to trust the process of their life unfolding. Even the bad parts help to prepare them and strengthen their spirits, temper their spirits. The so-called bad parts. You've heard the metaphor that we're like cars driving at night. You can only see as far as the headlight beam, but you can make the whole journey that way. I believe we're hardwired goal seekers, Will. There's a scene in the Peaceful Warrior movie where Dan and Socrates go up this big hill, hike up this hill, and Dan has this revelation. He says, Soc, it's not the destination that makes us happy, it's the journey. Well, there's some truth in that, because most of our lives are spent on the journey.
100%.
But without a destination in mind, there is no journey. We just wander around. So from our point A, we need a point B. To feel absorbed, to feel in the flow, I think we need a goal. And I would define success as making progress toward a meaningful goal. In one of my books, The Four Purposes of Life, I define the difference between a career and a calling. And it's easy to tell the difference. If you won the lottery, will you keep doing it?
Yeah.
And then it's a calling as well.
So you're married?
Yeah. Joy and I will celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary this year.
Congratulations in advance. What is it like to go 50 years in I'm assuming, obviously, happy relationship, happy marriage? A lot of marriages, relationships don't last a fraction of that time. What do you think has been a good contributor of success for you guys?
Well, first of all, I was married at 21 to a woman, and that lasted 8 years. And that was out of sheer stubbornness. It shouldn't have lasted that long. I wrote in one of my books, I cried on my wedding night. I mean, something was off. But so I've looked at life from both sides. I've been divorced. I've been in an unhappy marriage. But Joy and I, after 50 years, you build a relationship, and we've gone through so much together. Had our ups and downs, but basically, I just got lucky the second time around.
What was the big lesson you learned from the first marriage and the reason why it maybe didn't work out?
To be honest with myself and the other person I'm with.
You didn't feel that you were at that point?
No, I was being too idealistic. And if I had been honest, I would have probably ended it at the start. Socrates, he once said, by all means marry. He said, if you choose well, you'll be happy. If you don't, you'll become a philosopher.
I love that. Can you define the word love for me?
Love as an emotion is fickle. You know, somebody came up to me after a seminar and said, Dan, I feel so inspired. I said, don't worry, it'll pass. Because inspiration comes and goes, motivation waxes and wanes, and love as a feeling comes and goes. All of us know that. There are moments we just feel so much love for the people we're with, or somebody, a child, a spouse. Other times not, because we're angry, or because we're afraid, or because we're sad. So feelings change all the time. So trying to define love as a feeling, you know, I can love an ice cream cone, I can love a person. It's all different kinds of love. Yeah. But to me, the most meaningful definition of love is a behavior. Loving kindness. Behaving with loving kindness. Whether or not we actually feel loving in that moment. That's unreasonable.
Yeah.
But that to me is a transcendent kind of love, a more realistic kind of love in terms of how we behave in life. And in the same breath, happiness as a feeling is something that comes and goes. Yeah. It's never going to be forever. If we were happy all the time, how would we even know it? Right. You know, the measure of our sorrows is also the measure of our joys. Happiness is a practice. And people say, but how do I practice happiness? Well, how do you behave when you're happy? Are you present? Are you enthusiastic? Are you kind when you're feeling happy? You know how it is to be happy. So bring that into life. Behave with loving kindness. Behave as if you're happy. And you're more likely to also occasionally feel that way.
Interesting. Okay, you segued into my next question. I was going to ask you to share about your journal. But funny enough, I believe that you can figure out the habits of what makes you happy and what doesn't. And in this journal, every 15 entries, we have what we call an optimization day. And you know how you rated everything here, like your career, relationships on 10, but you go through the last 14 days and you ask yourself, when life was 8 on 10 or higher, what did those days have in common? When life was 6 on 10 or lower, what did those days have in common? Because I think you can, like you said, right? Like you just said, you can ask yourself, what did I do when I was happy? And what did I do when I wasn't happy?
Right.
And how do I do those actions more? I want to ask you, you wrote here one piece of life advice that you shared with yourself. Can you explain what that like?
Well, yes. And as I indicated before, go for excellence because that's in our control. Right. And success is not. How we do anything is how we do everything.
Dan, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, guess what? We actually released the full-length interview, every single second of advice on our podcast channel, Seeds of Success. You can check out the full interview by clicking the link right over here and subscribing. Thanks again, and see you next week.